right, welcome to Texas!
He's a 10.
I choose this family.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 172 of 91 Lone Star Roundup. I'm one of your hosts, Katie, and with me are my lovely co-hosts, Grace and EJ.
Hey guys!
Hello!
Today, we'll be talking about 91 Season 9, Episode 15, titled Pick Your Poison. There is so much to talk about in this episode, so we're just gonna get right into it. We start out with this guy showing up at the police station, and basically he's looking for Athena. She's never met him before, she doesn't recognize him, and he says he's here for a murder, and like she's kind of asking like what, like whose, and he says his own, and then he just vomits blood on her desk, and it's just like, okay,
So
well,
gross.
yeah, like yeah, I was wondering what this was too, because they didn't show it like this in previews, but I was just like, okay, that's weird and interesting. Then we get our next scene, which is Buck at a doctor's office, and his hand is like shaking while he's waiting for the doctor. And of course, we know context-wise why that is and stuff. And then the doctor comes in and he kind of discovers that Buck has been to like 3 different doctors, and because Buck's like, oh, well, I haven't been able to be seen or something. He makes up some excuse, you know, and he's like, well, every port seems busy. And I'm like, oh no. And then the doctor basically mentions like nobody in California treated him for broken ribs because that's what he was like complaining about. And Buck says, oh, well, the accident was in New Mexico. And like the doctor questions if they treat him with opioids there. He then tells Buck that he is looking at the cures database and asks Buck if he even if he knows what that is. Buck says no, and the doctor tells them that is a controlled substance review and evaluation, and he has to consult on it every time he prescribes opioids. And he tells Buck, want to guess how many times your name like basically pops up? And you know, Buck's like, well, I'm a firefighter and I can't do my job if you're in pain. And I love the doctor saying that you can't do it if you're high as a kite either, which is true. He was saying like all the right things too, which I would hope so. And then he tells Buck the doctor shopping is a form of fraud. And Buck says like he never takes him at work. Like he's not just some kind of drug fiend. And Buck says it's only been 5 weeks, and the doctor tells him if you use opioids recreationally, it only takes 5 days to develop a dependency. And the doctor is surprised that this didn't ping earlier, but a lot of times it takes the system like time to catch up. But now it's caught up to Buck, and Buck's like, well, I'll just go get a second opinion. And he tries to walk out of the room. The doctor says that you won't, because I'm going to flag your name in the system. And Buck questions what he is supposed to do now, and the doctor tells him to basically get help. It was a tough scene. It was also like an eye-opening scene. I like that they put this in there. It just showed like how serious this is. Yeah. Even from the end of last episode, which obviously we knew that it was serious. And like I had seen this scene, or at least part of the scene beforehand. So I was just like, wow, okay, we're really going here.
Well, I'm glad.
Yeah, didn't they release it as a teaser or something?
Yeah, like part of it.
I'm glad they featured this and they didn't like gloss over it. I feel like it was very important, and first scene, and Oliver's doing amazing.
Absolutely.
And I feel like this was very important to see the progression. And you know, shoot, I remember I used to take Sudafed, and I remember when they put that computerized system in place. So even buying Sudafed over the counter, you had to provide your license every time you purchased it, because there's something that's in it that makes heroin or some sort of drug.
Oh, yeah.
You know, even that, too much of that in a month, you could get pinged for too. So it's there for a reason, to protect people. And unfortunately, like he said, you know, it can take there is a little delay, and Buck was definitely struggling. And I loved this episode for that, like what they did and how they showed it.
Yeah, they like, sure. I'll definitely, I think we'll all have things to say by the end of it for sure. But I will say immediately that I am very happy with how this was done. I know I was speaking last episode about my fears about it, mostly alleviated in this episode. I thought they did wonderfully. Oliver's acting out of the park.
For sure.
And like, I am glad they are having these conversations, like as frankly as they are, because opioid abuse is a huge problem. And like what happened with Buck, getting hooked on painkillers is a major thing.
Yeah.
Like that is how a lot of people trip into it. And it's always something where you think you have control and then you don't.
Yeah.
And it's just so easy.
And first
I remember
responders, it's a really hard, very common.
It's very common for multiple different reasons, but it definitely is. It's a very known thing. They talk about it a lot. I remember, like, I was injured this past year, and I think I was talking about going to possibly, what is the place? Instacare or something like that, and urgent care. That's what it is. I was like, what's the name? Urgent care or something afterwards, because I like to not go to the hospital. And everyone around there, including someone who I know is a recovering addict, was like, do not take any opioid pain. Like, just do ibuprofen. I had never any intention of letting myself get near any of that, but like, I'm grateful it's more of a known thing now, but unfortunately they have that in place because people stockpile and will abuse it. So necessary things to combat very prevalent evils.
So then we have the scene with Harry and Robbie, and Harry is talking about getting a tattoo at the 118, and I was just having war flashbacks to Lone Star when Mateo got that tattoo. I don't know about you guys, but like that popped in my brain immediately. And
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I am the one that would think about these things, but like, yeah, they're just like, that popped in my brain right away, so I had to mention that. It's just funny. He's been a firefighter for like 5 minutes. He's already talking about getting the 118 just like on his body, which, hey, whatever, do whatever you want, but it's just funny. More so, and then May walks in and saying, "Oh, you left your night guard at Mom's," and Harry is just like, so like, this is so awkward, embarrassing, and it's also like awkward
because he was just talking about how he was like, he's not a kid anymore. He's like, he's a new recruit,
right?
Like, poor timing on her arrival.
Yep, that's an older
big
sister
sisters
for
will
you.
always do it. Big sisters will always do it.
Yep. But it's also awkward because it's the first time that May and Ravi are seeing each other. Apparently he like just didn't call her back or something like that. And then like shortly after this, Ian walks in, the nurse that we met in the last episode, and May and him are like kind of like hang out or whatever they're doing at this point, and he's like, "Oh, are you all ready, or do you want to like stay here? It's okay if you want to stay here and like hang out with your brother." And I'm just thinking, okay. And like, they were gonna go to breakfast, and I love how after the fact Harry was like, "I thought you guys were like dating," and Robbie's like, "You told me that I couldn't unless I switched to a different firehouse." And Harry's like, "Oh, that was just a quip. Like, I just said that. Like, I didn't actually mean it." And I'm just like,
I basically watched the steam come out of Ravi's ear.
I freaking love Ravi, and like this episode, just so many things. Oh my god, I love him so much. Like, I always have, but like, just this season has just felt like we're getting so much of Ravi, which I'm so happy about. And yeah, this is such an interesting scene. It was very, very funny. I did enjoy that.
You need to make him a series regular.
Literally. Like,
I think they're progressing up to it.
Yeah, I'm like 50-50 on it, because I know that like there are going to be like some sort of form of like budget cuts coming within the next season, but I'm hoping we can still get that. We'll kind of see on that, but yes, more Ravi, please. So then we get this scene with Athena, and she meets this detective, and like apparently he like, it's his case now or whatever, like it just fell into his lap, something like that. And so
I wanted to trip him into a river.
I didn't like this dude.
I did not like this guy.
And so he's like, "Oh, guy's name that Athena met at her desk, I believe his name was Bernard." And so basically the detective's like, "Oh, he was poisoned." And Athena wants to know obviously why he knew her name, because like he showed up and knowing her name and asking for Athena, but Athena has no idea who this man is. But that's all we get for that for right now. But yeah, I do not like this detective. I love Athena working a case. Like, I do love when they do this kind of thing, but like it's not the same when it's not like Rick, you know what I mean? I know you guys know what I
Dude, I
mean.
miss Rick.
Yeah.
Like, actually, I'm like, wait. I thought of it when we were watching this. I was like, why can't we get one of the ones we like?
Literally. Then we go back to the 118, and I love Robbie just going all social media stalking on Ian and saying that he's 30, so he's like a decade older than May. And I'm like, dude, May is like 23, or like I would say 23.
We worked through
That's
that
not
out.
necessarily, I get he was saying like almost, but like
Mhm.
no, not really, dude. And then I just love Harry being like, well, aren't you 30? And Robbie's like, not yet. And I'm like, that's so valid. It's like, don't age it unless I'm
Right.
actually there, you know? Like,
It also does kind of indicate to us because we've speculated on how old Robbie is. So we know
Mhm.
he's
yeah.
in his late 20s somewhere.
Yeah.
Maybe
That actually does
29
make
or something.
sense because I feel like when we first met him, he could have been like 23, 24.
Hmm. Also, like he was also established as a limp
Yeah, that's
because I
true.
that always hung me up a little bit
I
on that
forget
like
like
age
what season
conversation.
they dropped that in.
I
You
want to
know
say
what?
4, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, that it is very interesting to think about. But I do like that they were so casually just dropping like close age kind of like timeline. I'm like, thank you for once for actually
Hmm.
putting that in there. Then I love like Hen walking into this, and Hen is like to Robbie, like you and May, and Harry says they had an evening, but he never called her. And I love Hen being like, Rob's not very chivalrous. I love the little nicknames they have for him. Like Chim
Hmm.
always calls him Ravioli.
Yeah.
And that is
Yeah.
such my favorite. And this is the first time I think I've heard Hen say Robs, and she said
Yeah.
it multiple times in the episode, which I
Hmm.
absolutely loved. And I was like, yes, I love that they just have little pet names and
I
stuff.
feel like he's actually being established in the 911 family. Like he's
Yes.
being really pulled in now, and I'm so glad they're finally doing that.
Yeah, I and it's like he has low key been in the family because he was in like the picture for Hen and Karen's wedding. I don't
Hmm.
necessarily think they put it in the show because like I remember seeing that picture and being like they did not just crop him out.
Mm.
But like it's there in my brain at least. So I
Yeah.
do love this. And then I love Chim walking into this. And then Hen's like, I can't believe Buck is missing this. And Chim wonders where is Buck as we go to Buck, who is vomiting in a bathroom. And I'm just like, this is bad. And he even like
Withdrawals
looked,
are a bitch.
Yeah. They
yep,
do.
yep. And there was even a moment where he's looking into the mirror and he's like, you can get through this. And I just wanted to bawl. And like, I definitely get that because I've definitely had my own self-talks to myself like that for other things. But oh my God, I was just like literally going through it in this episode, as I'm sure everybody was.
Yeah. It was just heartbreaking watching him go through it alone. Feel like he had to go through it alone because obviously like everything's on the line with this.
Right.
But also like withdrawals can kill people.
Yep.
Yep.
So it
Okay.
like it's a thing. Usually it's with higher longer abuse and higher dependency from my knowledge, but still it withdrawals can kill people and even if
Hmm.
you don't, they're just plain a bitch.
Right.
But then we get into more of the investigation. So Athena and this detective go to Bernard's son's school and basically find out that Bernard is a investigative journalist. So of course he has a lot of enemies, from politicians to CEOs to criminals, the cartel, you name it. And so then they start investigating these people who are his said enemies. And so they get like some lab result back, and basically he was poisoned, which we were kind of figuring out. And I don't know. I liked the storyline, but then I was also like I don't know. Like I was wishing they were gonna do something more of it. I don't know what I was wishing actually. I don't know. I think a lot of people were talking about it like, okay, this damn storyline.
Yeah, I agree though, because it kind of felt like towards the end of it, it was like, so what? What?
Yeah, it kind of felt like what was the purpose of it? And I feel like sometimes when I'm watching the show, I'm absolutely watching the show and I'm like, okay, well, this is all happening and I'm entertained. But then when the show's off and even in a rewatch, I'm like, okay, so what was the point of this? It wasn't impactful. And maybe it was just for like entertainment, like obviously entertainment, but like, I don't know. I guess I'm just spiraling through my thoughts, being like, wait, what was the reason? Like I get we needed to like put some other storylines in there, but like
I think that
I
was the
felt like
sole
it was
reason.
just very I feel like I want it to have more and not be like at the end of what happened. It was more of a
Mm.
simpler answer. It's not like it was like this groundbreaking like result, I guess.
Hmm.
And as far as I remember, it didn't even really link back to any of the messages of the rest of the episode, which tends to be the other thing that happens with storylines like this. So I think it literally was just to break up the 118 centric storylines,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
fine. Like there's nothing
It's
wrong with it. But it just I felt like we could have also used that time elsewhere. Or even to talk about the anniversary of Bobby's death, because that was a theme in this episode.
Yeah.
We
yeah,
could have
which
had some discussions with Athena on that.
Which I was like looking this up because I was like, I don't remember his death being like around this time. And I was like, okay, it was like April 17th. But I was like, okay, I think they're just getting ahead of themselves because they won't be airing at that time.
And also, like, they have technically skipped ahead in the show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
So,
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's true. Because I was just like, well, in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, I know we're close to it, so it really doesn't matter. But like, I'm like, I know we're there, but like, and I was like, oh yeah, well, this is airing. Well, they're not going to be airing in April because it's not like they didn't have like the same airing schedule as they did last year. So it does
Hmm.
seem like, yes, it's almost there. Like, it's fine because we know we have progressed. Yeah, that's true. Then we have another storyline. So we had this kid that can't breathe, and we saw like this like brief scene of like basically the hospital being so backed up. Like they literally had multiple gurneys. The one teens just there waiting, which I did find
Hmm.
kind of interesting. And I obviously we know why they were sort of doing that. And then they're all backed up, and like even like where they're sending people they're like kind of like having to talk about. And then Maddie ends up like having to like get on the call because she has to tell the mom like just get in your car. It's only a few blocks and directs her to the hospital. But of course, nothing normal happens to this show because the mom gets like in an accident and like hits a fire hydrant and obviously water's going everywhere, like this is not good. So then Josh has to like call the ER. Well, he was already calling the ER anyways and stuff, saying that they were basically driving there. And then so then this involves Ian running to the scene of this accident because the boy can't breathe and they don't have time or whatever. And then the 118, I just love them just all casually standing there and be like, why is this nurse running? And then like Maddie called Jim and like they end up going there as well to save the little boy and stuff. And this was such I liked this scene for like the interactions between Ian and like specifically like Robbie and Terry and just everyone in general. But I'm just saying it was a good storyline for that because they
Yeah.
kind of got to get that perspective.
I will be I'll be real. I was stressing this entire scene. And this just goes back to now being a medical professional. And I was just going like, I can't fucking breathe. Because kids don't
Yep.
go into rarely go into cardiac arrest because of cardiac problems. They go into cardiac arrest because of respiratory problems.
Yep.
When a kid's respiratory system is compromised, they go down
Yep.
like much faster than adults. So I was just watching this the entire time going, fuck, fuck, fuck. I was stressing out so bad, you guys. I
Yeah.
was like,
It
no.
was yeah, it was a bit stressful. I was just like, oh no. Like of course this happened.
Yeah. It was pretty on par. But I will say I like seeing Ian. I don't know if we're gonna get any more of him, but I kind of like him as a character and wouldn't mind if he showed up more.
Yeah, agreed. So I love how Guy Bernard will only talk to Athena. He will not talk to the detective, which I'm just like, love it.
Like it.
And So he basically explains that he knows who she is because he wanted to basically write a piece on her because she was the one that landed the plane on the freeway. But like Athena wanted nobody to know that that was her, but he was kind of able to figure that out, and he was like, "Well, I'm not in the business to expose heroes." So like, but that's like how he knew of her. And so he's like telling her that like somebody spiked his water bottle and he thinks he knows who, and it was like, I'll tell you, but you have to test the water bottle. And like apparently this chemical can be like traced back to the exact batch. And so he knows a lot of like things about this, and it's just like okay. But again, like it was just it was just there. I don't know. I don't really have a lot to say but the specific storyline.
Yeah, it was just, I don't know. I feel like there's been a similar case in another series I watched, and I mean, I get it, and like they're tracing it back and trying to figure out like where it came from, and and it's a radioactive material, and so it's very specific signature.
Yeah, I like this. It's kind of interesting because when we saw the promo, I was like, "Oh, this is going to be interesting." And now in the episode, not saying it's not interesting. Like it definitely was entertaining in a sense, but now like looking back, I'm just like, I don't know. Like I feel like this, like it's fine that was in this episode, but if they had done something slightly different or even put this somewhere else. Maybe like if they made a detective storyline the main thing, I would be like, oh yeah, I would eat that up.
It's funny because I was just thinking about how I actually think this storyline was wasted in this episode.
Yeah.
I think it should have been somewhere
I
else.
agree with that. Yeah, because I love when Athena has like her like investigative storylines. I find it very
Hmm.
interesting. And I think it's fun when they make it kind of like a fun thing in an episode where I get they were trying to break it up emotionally because this episode, if they had kept it so dark, it would have been a
Hmm.
completely different episode. And obviously, for everyone's own mental state, we kind of do need to break up episodes and stuff. So I get it, but I'm also just like, I don't know. So that's why I'm just like, I don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I would have preferred this in an episode somewhere along the line of like the murder mystery that we had in season 4 with the neighbors and the stuff.
Yes, I miss episodes like that.
That's
I wish they would do more
so
episodes like
good.
that because those are so good. Yeah,
I
for
feel like
sure.
they could have put something else in here that like broke it up a little bit, but still kind of kept it to the like central. I feel like I don't know what they could have put in here, but still I'm like they
Yeah,
could have
that's
managed
my
something.
thing too. I'm just like, I don't know
Like
what we could have done,
like
but
even
like,
have Harry in the process of getting his tattoo and he actually finds out he's like a huge wimp and doesn't like needles or something like
yeah,
that. Like they could have put that in
I
here.
know. Yeah, for
I
Hmm.
think
sure.
that could have worked because they mentioned
Yeah,
it. So if
Yeah.
we needed comedic relief. But that's just
yeah.
my
So, yeah, Buck is not looking good. And, he's like talking to Eddie in the ambulance and he's like totally gonna come clean. But then he panics and then he starts making small talks about getting a new truck. And Eddie tells, like, so Eddie's like, Buck is talking about, like, oh, a hatchback. And Eddie's like, you're not a hatchback kind of guy. You don't look like a hatchback kind of guy. And then Eddie actually looks at him and goes, oh, you look terrible. And
He
Buck is
looks like
just,
death warmed over.
Yeah, he does.
yup, yup. And he just like, oh, it was food poisoning. It was from that bad sushi. And Eddie is like, we all had the sushi. But then Hannah is calling Eddie because she's like, your locker's ringing. And so he's like, oh, it's Christopher. I really hope you didn't eat that sushi. And I was just like, oh no, because I was like, oh, did they eat it like at the 118? Where did we eat
Right.
this said thing?
Yeah.
Oh, and like Eddie was, doing like his job. He was going through the med. So the med drawer is just wide open and he walks away still open, of course. And I was like, oh no. Like I literally audibly when I was watching this go, oh no. And so
Yeah.
Buck is then touching the vials and stuff and like he grabs a few, but then they get a call. So he puts them back and closes the drawer. Oh my
Which
God.
It was really hard to see that. I mean, he was
It
definitely
was.
struggling and he was about ready to take him, but then he realized, Saved by the Bell, literally, like they got a call and, he put it back, but it could have really gone a different way if he'd have
Yeah.
kept them.
It reminded
Yeah.
me of that scene in Lone Star when one of the vials, I believe, went missing, and
Mm,
Tommy and Nancy were like talking about it, and Nancy's like, well, maybe we miscounted it, something like that. And like they didn't want to ring something because, like, what if it was just like a mistake and he didn't take it? And I was totally getting flashbacks to like that sort of thing.
yeah. I felt this was hard because he was about to come clean. He
Yeah.
was like, he
He
came
was
there to
trying.
ask for help. And
Yeah.
then he saw the med drawer open and you saw it click in his brain.
Yeah.
Because truly an addiction is a beast like no other.
Yeah.
And so
And that
he was able
is,
to, because he was trying to put it off and he was trying to like make side conversation. And I think he was probably going, I don't know if he was trying to delay it or if he was going to try and eventually get Eddie out of there to do it. I don't know, but he didn't actually take them.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
It's so hard too, asking for help, not even in
Yeah.
this situation. Like, obviously, this situation it is. I'm not saying it's not, but like, like asking for help if you're like struggling with your mental health too is like also very hard. And
Yeah.
like,
which is
there's
how
so
part of
many
how we got here.
scenarios. There's so many scenarios that are very
Right.
hard. I'm not trying to downplay any of them. They're all,
Yeah.
they're all very hard. It's hard to ask for help generally.
Yeah.
So I
And
get it.
And we know Buck. I mean, Buck and historically has been a character who does a lot of "I'll just do it myself" mentality.
Yeah.
So
He
it's hard for him.
internalizes a
Yeah, he
lot.
does. And it was very hard to see him. And I do think that he was going to Eddie to try and say something like, "Hey, I think you're right," or something, like the last few weeks of him kind of trying to check in on Buck. But yeah, when he saw the meds, like his brain went a completely different direction. And
Yeah, for sure. I did love this scene of Athena with Bernard, and she's like kind of with him, and she's like telling him he's not alone because, like, at the end of the day, he's still a person. And even if his son thought he was a terrible father or a terrible person or whatever, he's dying and he didn't deserve to be poisoned.
Yeah. And it's like he made bad decisions, but he didn't make them for wrong
Right.
reasons.
And like
yeah,
everybody makes bad decisions. Everyone maybe like your kids might think or just people in general might think that you didn't do something right or your actions do affect other people, but it might have not have been like your intention. And he definitely didn't deserve for this to be the way that he died and he went out.
Hmm.
So I love Athena and I love her like how she can be here for him or just people in general. I love
Hmm.
when they give her like things like this.
Queen Angela Bassett.
I
no,
She
love
truly
that
has such
woman.
acting.
Uh
She has such skill.
I know. Like it's just like even like a lot like this past week, like I just like being reminded of so many things that have happened with Athena and like just things that she's done in the show and I'm just like, I love her.
yeah,
Hmm. Queen.
Literally. Then we get the scene. I love this scene, guys. I literally like writing notes, wrote them, then I had to rewatch it, and I've literally seen this scene so many times. I just
so good.
it is so good, and I was so impressed by it, and I know we'll have lots to say on it. So we had this scene with Buck and Chim, and so Buck is just like, "Hey Chim," and Chim's like, "Buckley, what did I tell you about bothering me while I'm doing after action reports?" And Buck
Hmm.
tells him that he needs to fire him, and Chim says that he thinks a warning would be enough because like no, and he is kind of like tripping over his words at first. So this is when Chim actually looks up at him and stuff because he obviously in his mind this is just like any other day. Like he's not thinking that something is wrong. He is just
Yeah,
thinking that Buck is being that annoying like little
little.
brother-in-law to gonna annoy him or bother him or
Hmm.
just say
Yeah,
something really like silly or whatever. like the normal stuff that Buck would be doing. And so then Chim actually looks up at him and Buck says, "You have to fire me for stealing meds from the rig." And Chim kind of looks at him and scoffs, and Buck's face is like so blank and he's shaking like his head as Chim just like is staring at him. Obviously, there's a lot of shock there. And then Chim then asks like what he took, and Buck says nothing but fentanyl almost. And Chim sighs so like heavily, and he closes his laptop and says, "That's a felony." And Buck says like he knows it is, and he tells Chim he put it back, all of it, but only because the tones went off, and he doesn't know if he trusts himself to do that again. Like he thinks he'll do it again, which honestly, understandably. And Chim asks like how long he has been using, and Buck says since the car accident in New Mexico, and Chim sighs, and Buck says they prescribed him oxycodone and he ran out, and Buck says he needs it, he needed it. And Chim asks if he is high right now, and Buck says no, and that he never is on the job. And Chim says that he looks like he's been in withdrawal for a day or two. And Buck shakes his head. Jim asks Buck, "Have you told anybody this? Your sister, Eddie, anybody?" And Buck says, "Just you, Captain." And Chim sighs and is like, "Buck." And he tells Buck that protocol says he relieves Buck of his duty. Report this so the department can determine when, if ever, Buck comes back to work and if Buck faces criminal charges. And Chimp says, or we keep this in house and watch Buck like a hawk. And Chim risks his own career, and Buck's like, "No, no, I won't let you do that. That's why you have to fire me." And Chim says he is not gonna let Buck get off that easy. And Chim says Buck came to him for help. That's what they're gonna get him. Starting tonight, after Chim calls the chief, he says it's not fair to the citizens of Los Angeles to rob them of such a stellar firefighter, and Chim's hoping he'll see it that way too. And Buck has like tears in his eyes and says, Chim, this is not me." And Chim tells Buck, I know you're not the first person to get hooked after an injury, okay? And given the timing, I can't say that I'm shocked." And Buck kind of sniffles and is like, "What? What is that supposed to mean?" And Chim tells Buck, "This week it'll have been 1 year since we lost Bobby." And Buck says he didn't remember, and he says he must have blocked it out. And Chim says, "Yeah, well, that's grief. You don't see it coming, and then it sucker punches you in the face." I love how Chim was in this scene. This is like showing such growth of him as a captain, and this really just shows like the kind of captain he's like becoming. He is I feel like because we've seen like the progression, because obviously with the hen situation, obviously it was a totally different thing, and I feel like he's making up for that. And even in the intervention, Chim said something along the line of like, "If it had been your brother," and Buck is just like, "You would fire me?" And Chim goes, "In a heartbeat." So I feel like obviously like we are having such a different tone of scene, and it's one thing of like saying something where it actually being a reality. And he listened in the scene, and he was an actual leader. Didn't really think much. Well, I didn't know where they're gonna go. I didn't know if they were gonna let this play out the rest of the season and then something happen. I didn't know if we were gonna be handling it now, so I didn't really think much of like who Buck was gonna confide in. I was happy that it was Chim. I think this did lead for such a strong like storyline, such a strong scene with both of them. Like they both acted their asses off in this.
Yeah.
And they could have easily, I'm glad they didn't, because it would have been just really bad. It would have had really bad payoff. But like I feel like a lot of times they just don't take Buck seriously. They think he's just being like, stupid little Buck. I don't know how to explain it. I think you guys know exactly what I mean.
Oh
So I feel
yeah.
like
Yeah.
but I liked that very immediately. Jim was like, oh shit, like this is serious. And like they wrote it so well. I was a little nervous of how they would handle this sort of thing. I was trying to be hopeful, but I was also like deep down a little nervous of where they would go or how they would kind of write this into the show. But this was so impactful, and where it goes from here, I love even more.
Yeah, I feel like I have said for ages that I've been frustrated with Chimney and Buck's relationship and how Chimney acts around Buck and towards Buck. I've said that for ages. I've also said that I've been frustrated with how generally the 118 has been more negligent in like their friendship and like looking out for him. I've said that often. That was a large reason why I was afraid of this storyline.
Yeah.
Because let's be real, a lot of, not all the time, but a lot of addicts do fall in because they don't have people there for them. But a lot of people fall in and they have a whole support group behind them.
Yeah.
Addiction makes no sense. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like that. But I was worried because I was like, are they going to backpedal everything? Like, how are we going to do this? Like, I don't want people being wise asses about this.
Right. Yeah,
And so
exactly.
this scene was everything I needed it to be. Like, there's still stuff I would like to have happen in later scenes because this is not everything's resolved in their relationships and everything. But I was so impressed with Chim, and once again reminded of Kenneth Choi's skill as an actor because he is
Mhm.
great actor in and of himself. And I just felt like this was just such a heart-wrenching scene because also like Oliver's acting and Buck's fortitude, because not a lot of people would have the courage to do what he did, especially knowing that this could be career ending. This could be like, because getting hooked, that's one thing. Almost taking from the ambulance, that's another.
Yeah.
So because that escalated everything.
That was definitely a
Um,
wake-up call.
Yeah.
And I'm glad he still had the presence of mind to realize that,
Yeah, for sure.
because that goes out of the window. So I'm very happy. I am interested to see what happens, like, and we'll talk about this more, but like I am interested to see what happens with the rest of the season. I have a feeling if they touch on this more, it will be with like the oversight committee and everything, because that's being addressed by department heads. But I don't know. I'm really happy with what they did with this scene.
Yeah, this scene was really good. I think it was really important in a lot of ways. Obviously for the progression of the storyline, but also for these characters, because like Grace said, for a long time, Buck has kind of been the kooky little brother, the younger, person who doesn't have the family and, kids and wife and all that stuff. So he's kind of always the one that's hanging out with everybody and is the golden retriever of the team. So to see him break down like this and have enough clarity in his mind to realize that this wasn't going to get any better without help and speaking up, and he did the right thing. And I think that's why Chim was able to basically say we can keep it in house, because Buck did the right thing. He spoke up, he asked for help, he didn't hide it, for long, and nothing major happened on the job. Like he didn't, injure a patient, drop something, hurt himself or somebody else. Yes, he did try to take meds from the rig, but that was its own perfect storm of situations, because Eddie should have never left the ambulance with the door open, but his phone was ringing. So he took off. So had Eddie thought, he should have closed the door. So had he not had access to it, he might not have done that. And I get where Buck was coming from about him not wanting Chim to like go to the mat for him and kind of keep it in house. He wanted them to do it, by the book. But Chim really proved that he has grown a lot too, and saw this for what it was and not just Buck's just the little brother. So good for Chim and his growth. And again, like Grace said, Kenny and Oliver did amazing in this scene. This was very powerful.
Yeah, I'm like still watching the scene and still thinking about it, like days, almost week later and stuff. Like it is so powerful. And even like I'm seeing people like pull back like scenes from earlier seasons. Like it's like Buffy's season one, like relapse. And
Mhm.
this is before we really knew Bobby, and like the scene of like Bobby being like something like, "Oh, I don't know what to do," and Buck's like, "Well, maybe ask help," and now this is him having to ask for help.
Yeah.
It
It's
is
so
a frightening
powerful.
parallel, but it is a parallel and it is
I know.
powerful. It
I hate that
is.
they have to have this parallel.
And even
but-
Athena touches on that later on.
Yeah, I was just about to say,
Yes. I'm glad we get that and we'll
I
get
will
around to
have
that. But like,
thoughts about that when we actually get to that part.
yes.
So Athena brings Bernard's son or whatever. 'Cause obviously he wanted to say goodbye to his son, even if his son necessarily didn't want to. And so whatever, they have whatever conversation they have, And then after his father dies, Athena arrests him, which honestly, that was the most satisfying part because like, yeah, I had a feeling this was going to be the outcome and stuff. And then yeah, so that happens, and basically like Athena figured it out because like he was a science teacher, so he had access to like the specific chemical, and he would just collect it little by little. And Athena's like, "Oh, so you must have been like scrolling this away for like years to basically poison his father." And I loved like the part where the son was like, he was a really terrible father. And Athena goes, clearly. Like, it was just like, I don't really know what to make of that scene, but like I did find this part of it satisfying where Athena did this. I was just like, yep, love her.
Yeah, I was spoiled ahead of time that it was the son. So it was no huge mystery or anything for me, but I was wondering how we get to it and like, is it the like most satisfying into a mystery I've ever seen? Not at all. Was it satisfying as in I kind of want to sucker punch the sun a little bit? Yes, as well.
Yep,
Did I
that
understand?
was where I'm getting it.
Which I know that. I just also love mysteries so much that, like, from a
Yeah,
mystery
I do
standpoint. But because it's like, did I understand why the son was mad? Yes. Did I also think about like how premeditated this was? Yeah. Like, dude, just be like everyone else with a deadbeat dad and move on with your life, okay? Like, you need to try and kill him.
I love this next scene. So everyone is at Buck's, like, and they're going through his house basically. And so Hen finds like a pill bottle, and Eddie's like saying how this feels wrong, like they're searching through his house like he's a criminal. And Hen says they're not. They're just making it easier for him to get better by removing any future temptation. And Eddie says how he knew something was wrong, but Buck convinced him that he was overreacting, and Hen says that it is just part of the cycle. You ask questions, he deflects, then you feel guilty for doubting him. And then he says how now he is wishing he would have questioned more after New Mexico. And we also get part of the scene with Buck and Chris. They're playing cards outside. Buck puts his hand down, and Chris is like, "You're letting me win?" And Buck is like, yeah, sorry. And he's a little distracted. And Chris says, "It sucks to have people touching your stuff." And Buck says, "Yeah, and also just sucks because they're doing it because they don't trust me." And Chris asks, "Well, would you trust you?" And Buck says, "Probably not." And I love that little part. And then Jim tells Maddie it looks like it's all clear. He wasn't lying. There's nothing to find here. And Maddie thanks Jim for not making her look because there's some things a sister doesn't want to know. And I loved that. It's just like, yep, that is true. And Jim asks if he thinks like Jim made the right decision letting him recover here. Maybe he should have been in a facility where could have been supervised. And Maddie says he has an ex-nurse, 3 paramedics, and 2 EMTs. I think he's good on supervision. And I loved that. Yeah. And Eddie is like taking Buck's blood pressure and says it's a little elevated, but that's unexpected. And Buck asks Eddie what he thinks the disciplinary committee's gonna do to him. And he says he thinks they're gonna take it seriously, but also take in consideration that Buck reported himself, he worked the chain of command. I cannot say that while laughing because it's just funny. Eddie, how many times this freaking season Eddie has
Chain of
mentioned the
command.
chain of
Chain of
command.
command.
And so yeah, he worked the chain of command, and Buck is like, "You in that chain of command." And I love when I see people like pile together all the moments he said chain of command because I just find it so amusing. And Eddie says he knows Buck sees it as this thing that holds you back, but it's not. It's the thing that ties them all together, so no one person has to carry the weight alone, which I do love the sentiment of that.
Mhm.
And so, Buck sees like everyone around him. Like obviously he's with Eddie right now, and Chim and Maddie are like sitting outside, like on the patio. And then Rescue by Lauren Daigle
Oh,
starts
I
playing. And
love this
Oliver had said
song.
this was a theme song for Buck for like the end of the season. And now I know why he said that because it just all made sense. The second it started playing, I was just like, oh no, here we go. And
This
I
is such a good song.
I love this song. And to be honest, this is a song that I've always associated with the 118 for the longest time. Like, yes, it works for so many shows and stuff, but like for the 118, this is just what I've always associated with them specifically. And I loved seeing like everyone rally around Buck and help him and support him. And this is what the 118 is. And I loved seeing this because it almost felt like losing Bobby, understandably so, the 118 got a little disjointed, where it's not like they weren't supporting each other, but I feel like we haven't got a scene like this in
Right.
such a long time. So it almost felt like here the 118 is back
Yeah.
and stuff. And this is exactly what Bobby would have wanted. Like, if something like this were to come up, he would have wanted this exact thing to happen because this is what Chim is doing is exactly what Bobby would have done if he was here. Which is
Yeah.
why this is like his growth as a captain. And this is such a, like, I loved that they did a montage in this moment because it was such a beautiful montage. I loved seeing like everyone was sleeping there. Like they were all sleeping there. Like
Yeah.
the freaking whole 118 and some extended family were just all
Yeah.
sleeping at Buck's place and like caring for him and like taking shifts. Like
Sitting by his bed while he's sleeping. Like I loved it. This was so good.
yeah, it was so powerful. I loved seeing like there was a moment where Chim's like on his laptop while Buck's sleeping, and that was powerful in itself because I feel like their relationship has never been like this. Obviously, like yes, they care for each other, but like it's different. But yeah, it was such a powerful moment. Like these moments are like why I loved like this episode like that. Like it was so good.
Right. And I mean, the situation where we were in was Buck was detoxing from these medicines getting out of his system, and so his body was going through this like struggle of literally getting him out. And like just the things that they showed and how they showed them and the lyrics to this song. And I think, like I said earlier, for a long time Buck has always been the one that internalized things the most and didn't ask for help, and sometimes it could feel like people were just ignoring him. He was hidden per se, but I'm this like matches so well with what happened and just proves how much the 118 cares about him. Because I remember even back when we had that storyline, I think it was in season 3 of Red, the old retired firefighter passing away, and Buck had gotten connected with him, and just feeling how he was so disconnected from his firehouse and the guys that he worked with. And Buck was afraid that that was going to happen or it shouldn't happen and things like that. So to just see how they do actually rally around when he does need help was really good to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. This is what I want to see more of. Maybe not in this necessarily context, but I need to see more of this. I want to see more of this. And I just loved how it was just showing like the family finally like rally. And I also found their treatment of him like was good in this, because you don't coddle addicts.
Yeah.
You can't. And I think a lot of people make that mistake. There's no one more self-aware that I've ever met than a actual committed recovering addict. I say committed very selectively there, but you can't coddle them, but you've got to be there to support them.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you've been there yourself, you do not know what they are going through. All you can do is just be there to, rub their back when they're throwing up, to make sure they eat, make sure they drink. If they need more professional resources, there are those out there. Not perfect, but they're out there for a reason. And I'm glad they had it all handled in-house, because I don't know how they would have done a whole like rehab storyline necessarily, but I don't know. I loved this whole scene. Again, I was worried about what they would do with the storyline, but they did a really good job.
Yeah, and I love the part where the music fades. They're like kind of figuring out whose meal is which. And obviously, like some time has passed in this too. And so then Robbie comes in and he's like saying hi to him and like asking how he's doing. And she's like, good to see you. And Robbie's like, oh yeah, you too. And it's like that whole scene, and it's just like, oh, yep. And then May and Ravi are then alone, and she thinks that this is their order, but she's pretty sure they screwed it up. And Ravi's like, oh, it should be fine. And he says like, oh, Ian seems cool. And May's like, oh yeah, I heard you guys did a case together and saved a kid's life. And Ravi said he did he did most of the saving. Ian did. And
Yeah.
he just watched him marbled, and he says how he gets the appeal, and Ravi says he hopes they are happy together. And May has to tell Ravi that, we're not together. Like, me and Ian, we're not dating. And Ravi is like, since when? And she's like, since ever. Like, Ian's just helping her figure out nursing school, and Ravi's like, oh, you want to be a nurse? May is like, yeah, I know it kind of sounds crazy. And Ravi's like, oh, it sounds perfect. And he thinks that everything that she would do would be great. She'd be great at anything. And I'm just like, oh, I love him. I love them. I love the idea of them. I love the whole thing. Like,
Oh, I think I discovered the link between the murder mystery and the rest of the show. Is that between the son and Ravi, men will do anything except discuss their feelings.
yeah, actually, that's a good point.
I am mostly joking, but it worked.
Yeah. Also, I totally forgot about this, but I did find it funny. So in that earlier scene where it's at the 118 and they're all talking about like Ian, there was that one thing where like Ravi said, yeah, but we're like first responders. Then he called like basically Ian a second responder.
Yeah, because he's an ER nurse.
Which I found funny. It was like totally him being like, no, we're better.
Yeah.
It was
We're
just
better.
funny.
And wasn't he like didn't he play in the NFL for like 2 years or something like that? So
Yeah, because they were like, he was
Yes.
like, how long? He's only been Eddie, like, they had figured out he'd only been a nurse for a year somehow. And then Ravi's like, oh, what did he do before this? And then I was like, oh, he was in the NFL for like a few years. And then it was just like, Eddie said something about being famous. And it's like, well, you're not a first responder or something like that. I found the whole thing funny of like, just like
Watching
slight
smooth
jealousy.
Smooth Ravi just get like kind of jealous and like
And like,
a little off balance was kind of funny, because it's like,
it's
sir.
definitely for the right girl, because I feel like in like previous seasons or episodes when we've gotten like a little bit about, well, I feel like this is the first season we really gotten that with Robbie, but I always see it's like he's like, oh, just like so smooth, and like just like he definitely knows what he's doing, and then it's just like walking May and he's just like all nervous, and I'm just like, yep, that's the right girl for you.
Yep, I just love that. Like he says, like him talking about to like Buck about Tommy and all that, and him making like jokes with that and their like relationship status, whatever it was at the time, and then when it comes to his own relationships, he just falls apart. And I'm like, that actually kind of makes sense for his character.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm interested to see where this goes. And I loved them mentioning like May looking into like nursing school, because I'm just like, this is actually in the beginning where I saw her going.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, so I love that
Yeah.
this is coming full circle. Maybe not on their intention, but I absolutely love this because honestly, it makes total sense and stuff. I feel like everyone working in like some type of like essential career.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, even in the beginning or at the end of season 3, when she graduated high school and she pulled Maddie aside, I think we all suspected or thought that she was talking to her about becoming a nurse.
Right.
And then when we come
And they
back to season 4
switchy
and she's a dispatcher, it's like, oh, okay. So yeah, I think a lot of us have kind of thought she would go the medical route of some way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And then we see Buck is waking up and goes into the living room, and Athena's there. Athena says, like, oh, you're up. And Buck wonders how long he was asleep. And Athena's like, well, you were asleep when I got here, which is about 5 hours ago. And Buck says, like, oh, I'm sorry. And Athena tells him not to be, that he must have needed it. And Buck is like, no, I mean, I'm sorry about the anniversary. And he's sure the last thing she wants to be doing is babysitting him. And Athena says that they take care of each other every day. So being right here is exactly where Athena is supposed to be, which I absolutely loved.
Mm.
Like,
Mama
Yeah.
Athena, I love it.
literal mom. And Buck says, he's been on my mind these past few days. And Buck knows this is weird to say, but feels like he knows him now in a way that he didn't a year ago. And Athena tells Buck he really loved him, but she thinks he would have wished that part had remained a mystery.
Yeah.
And I love
Mhm.
Buck reaching out for her hand, which, yeah, Bobby would have never wanted
Yeah.
Buck to relate to him in this way. Bobby would have never wanted this as like
Right.
any addict.
Yeah.
They would never want somebody related to them in this way. They would never want them to go through that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's hard to think about, but it's just like I get what he was saying also. And
Yeah.
I love how everyone else is sitting outside and they're like telling a story about a call, and it turned out it was a girl that couldn't figure out how to unlock her car, and it was like a Bobby story. And I love the story. It was very funny, and I love them that they're able to like do this. And I love Athena. Like Athena and Buck end up outside and they're asking what they missed, and Harry said someone sprayed Bobby with air freshener. And Buck says, oh, yeah, he smelled like lavender for 3 days. I just love that. It was a very funny story. And I love how May saying that poor kid in the car, and like she must have been traumatized. And Eddie's like, she was 26, which I think
She
was
wasn't a kid.
funny. Oh. And then Maddie's like asking Buck, like, how is he feeling better? And he says, yeah, I am. He really thinks he's through the worst of it. And I love like Athena reaching over to support him. And Harry's like looking at his watch and says how it's midnight. Athena said that they survived the year. And Buck said he got them through it, and they like kind of hold up their coffee cups, which I imagine they have like tea or hot chocolate or something like that in. There was also another
Mhm.
scene where they were like drinking something like that. I find fond memories in.
Mhm.
But that was such a like a beautiful like sentiment and stuff, and that was kind of the end of it.
I think that was, I know we had talked about kind of wishing that they'd have brought up Bobby's passing a little more, but I think this was a really good way of doing it. We know how Bobby never really liked attention and he wouldn't have wanted some huge thing. And I think them just sitting around a fire talking about stories of him and memories, I think is the best way to keep people alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this was an opportunity for everyone to kind of share their thoughts, because I don't know if we've really had since the funeral a chance for them to really sit around and talk about Bobby that much.
Yeah, I did also like it being like they got through a
Yeah.
year, because obviously the first year is the hardest.
Yeah.
And like it really
Mhm.
made sense that it's been mentioned like a little bit, but not really. They've all been kind of working through their grief in different ways, or not working through it, obviously. That's also
Mhm.
how that goes. But they really it's a hard thing to mention, so I'm not surprised it wasn't brought up more. But I do like that they
Yeah.
were able to bring it up quite a bit in this episode.
Yeah.
And I did see like somebody talk about a take, because apparently I don't pay attention to what the fandom says, and a lot of times I don't even like to address what people are saying. So I haven't personally seen this, but that's also because I don't really watch too many like videos of people, like I watch maybe a few people, but these are people who don't ever have like bad takes about things. I don't go on like Twitter or whatever app there is
Yeah.
to read what
Twitter's
people
just a bad idea.
say. I did scroll through the promo and was reading the comments, and I really wish I did it because people said things in there that I wish I could unsee. But there was somebody's take, which I liked. They made a lot of good points, so I did want to share it. I will credit it too because they said, like, I was just like, when I saw it, I was just like, okay, yeah, this needs to be said a little bit louder. But yeah, it was like a TikTok I saw from this girl Shannon. Her at was like Natasha Lee Romanov or something like that. I will link the video, and I also I'll probably like share whatever we say here and possibly show the video like somewhere else so more people can see it, because it was like I did kind of write it down and paraphrase what she said because I was just like, oh yeah, this needs to be said. Basically, she was saying like that, like basically a chunk of the 911 fandom needs to be educated on dependency and addiction. People are saying that Buck's storyline is out of character. The whole point of this episode is to show the audience that dependency and addiction can happen to anyone, anywhere,
Yeah.
at any point in their life.
Yeah.
It does not matter if Buck knew Bobby and he knew better. It does not matter if he knows it's bad for him. None of that matters. What matters is that this is an illness and Buck is sick, and a lot of people are talking about him like he's dirty, disgusting. There have been all sorts of horrible takes like this since 9/14, and it's upsetting that people are really saying this. It's sad that this is how people view addicts. And if you view this in a fandom space, that's truly how you view them in reality. Buck is sick. Addicts have an illness. They are not dirty. They're not disgusting. They need help and love and support. And instead of talking about how Buck reached out for help as soon as he stopped being able to recognize himself and realizing how scared he was and how vulnerable he was able to get with Chim. People are complaining that this is out of character and out of left field, like he wasn't in some major car accident, kidnapped, tortured, almost murdered, on top of all the trauma from the last year. And on top of that, he wasn't weaned properly off of the medication in the first place. And these takes are terrible. And if you think this, you lack empathy, which I completely agreed with this. Once I saw this, I was just like I hate that. This is why I don't read things people say anymore, because this is just like so, like I don't really care what people in the fandom say that aren't in my circle. I don't scroll on like these apps for these reasons because I don't, not that I don't want to see people's takes, but like when people say the most asinine, stupid, disgusting things, I don't want to see that. Like I've already scrolled on a video like I said yesterday, and I saw people basically saying Chim's terrible at his job. Buck's probably gonna die. Maddie's terrible at her job. Like they should all just get fired. And I'm just like, okay, this is my fault for scrolling on a promo and reading what people have to say, because I feel like it's the same equivalent of a Facebook comment section sometimes.
It
Why did I
is.
do
Oh
that
my
to
gosh, it's such a
myself?
good that's such
This
a
is
good analogy.
and this is why I stay on like either Instagram or on TikTok, and I'll watch mutuals videos. And like if a video does pop up that's like 911 related, a lot of times I will watch it, because like in those senses I can like scroll away if I don't like what they say. Like if they say one thing I don't like, I'm like, okay, I can look away. But I appreciated this take, and I feel like this needs to be said more because I hate people are saying this. And I've seen this in Lone Star. We've seen this in so many shows. I like that 9-1 Lone Star have both kind of explored these kinds of storylines because it can happen to anybody.
At any time.
Yeah, that's one of the things I appreciated that was said, because not a lot of people will say that, but like nobody is above anything. It can happen to literally anybody. I was reading a book where somebody had gotten a like wisdom tooth surgery, and it wasn't narcotics that were like the addiction, but like it ended up stumbling into like an alcohol addiction. But like, there's things that lead to triggers and stuff. And like just even the topic of grief, like not surprised. Like I didn't if you told us a year ago that this is where we'd be, I'd be like, oh, that's interesting. I wouldn't have expected that, but I don't know how to word it, but like I think you guys understand what I mean. I know you guys do. That like it's interesting that we're here. I'm not mad. I would never be mad that if you told me a year ago that we were gonna get the story, I would never be mad or be like, oh, really? But yeah, I had to say that and stuff.
No, I'm glad you did. And oh, listening to that got me fired up. It got me fired up. I'm actually because I don't go into the comments for that reason. Because usually it pisses me off in one way or another. It's usually about people's refusal to move on after Bobby's death. And I will put it as such because I know it's difficult, but at this point, people are just being obstinate. I'm so glad I didn't see those, like, personally, because this is why people don't get help. This is why there's such a stigma around addiction and substance abuse. And just like the stigma that comes with it comes around the topic of suicide, where we're still dismantling stuff about that, where like that is also a mental illness. It is not a selfish take. This is also an illness. These are drugs that are usually specifically engineered to get you hooked. So in case anyone didn't know, our body already makes opioids. We have opioid receptors in our brains. What happens when we take opioids is we overload those.
And all your body wants is more.
All your body wants is more. It is a craving. It is a craving. It is a dependency. And literally, it can happen to anyone. Literally, that is the most important thing. Just like the topic of chronic illnesses or disabilities, everyone will be disabled at some point in their life if they live long enough. You're either going to die really sudden or you will be disabled at some point in your life. That is one of the biggest things that I have like really taken to heart lately and like learning and internalizing, because people need to do it to overcome like the stigma of people with disabilities and topics of conversation around that. Chronic illnesses is that. But you also have to talk that way about addictions as substances, because this shit just pisses me off, especially knowing and loving people that have had addictions and watching that and like knowing for them, like they never thought they'd end up here. They never thought they'd end up like this. They never thought they'd end up with a lot of their friends dead or in prison. They never thought that you go into recovery and you think you're going to do it this time, and then you have one day and you're back out on the street. It's such a vicious cycle, and it's already got enough problems. And the fact that people are just casually talking about this, yes, it's a fictional character, but real people are seeing this. Real people that are struggling are seeing this.
Right. And also, like, you don't know who's seeing something, and maybe this storyline with Buck being on TV, maybe somebody sees this and is like sees themselves and was like, oh shit, I need to get help. And that leads them to reach out to whoever get help. That's like the same thing with like, you know, mental health storylines and shows, all these different things in shows. And also I know Oliver has been like sharing like different like hotlines for addiction too, which is incredible. And obviously shows do that in general. At the end of the day, yes, partially it is a show, but also these are real things that are happening, and shows do these for people to be like, you know, they're able to give that to people to kind of bring awareness and kind of, you know, you don't know who's gonna take impact from that.
And also, like, let this be a reminder for people to keep an eye on the people around them, check in on the people around them. Like, we are such an individualistic society, and I think it's worse after COVID because people had to function on their own so much.
Yeah,
that I think we've really lost a sense of community. Specifically, if you're in the US, I think we're all suffering from a high level of individuality, but also like a severe lack of community. So check in on your people, check in on your friends and your family, especially when you know they're going through something. And remember that you might not always know when someone's going through something.
Absolutely.
Educate yourself on resources, educate yourself on ways to help. And simple things like learning where carry Narcan with you. Like there are places you can get Narcan for free.
Yep.
Taking simple CPR courses, taking there's so many resources in which you can educate yourself, and there's so many free resources in which you can educate yourself. So I beg, please do that, because this could have impacts that could save a life.
Yeah, and you never know what someone's going through. I'm been taking these classes through a program, and the teacher every week will say, you don't know what you don't know. And I think a lot of people make some really dark assumptions about people and things. And this was a perfect example of, a Buck's storyline is a perfect example of how it can happen. You can go in and have a minor, medium injury, get some medication to treat yourself for 4 to 5 days, and then you need more. It's not uncommon. You have surgery, you're on medication. But the longer you're on a medication, the more chances you become addicted. It could happen when you're 20, it can happen when you're 50, it can happen when you're 75. And it's, in a way, it's considered an invisible illness because you really don't see any outward symptom until you're in Buck's situation where he's going through withdrawals. And then people are like, oh, you look like crap. Well, yeah, he looks like crap because he's been going through hell. And his body is struggling because it doesn't have what it thinks it needs. And he needed help, and he asked for help, and he got it. And coming from someone who has a chronic illness, which is also an invisible illness, it's not fun to deal with. And the stigmas and the stereotypes that get put on you because of X, Y, and Z suck. So I'm glad that this person spoke up about what was being said, because I think people need to hear that. And not just in the fandom, just in general, like humanity. Like, if you guys would just stop and think, not you guys, but like in general, if people would just stop and think for 5 minutes about a situation, you'd realize if you were in that same situation, you would have a completely different outlook.
Right. Yeah, and like obviously there's that old saying, but you guys know what I mean. There's that saying that you shouldn't judge somebody unless you walk a mile in their shoes. And that's
Right.
like, these are all these sayings that if you go to school or just in general in life, that they instill in you at a very young age and they stick with you. And that's one of the ones I always think about. There's so many of those even cliche sayings that.
And that's why they become cliches, because they're said so much, because it's constantly coming up.
Yeah. And also, like, I do want to say that it is important to keep in mind that, like, when we say anyone can become addicted, it is literally true. And you can have literally the picture perfect life. No trauma, no financial struggles, no mental illness, you can literally have the cookie cutter life. And all it takes is one time. Literally anybody. But it is also worth noting that a lot of people, like, I know all the addicts I know, all the people that are recovering alcoholics or recovering addicts that I know of, have some pretty heavy trauma in their past.
Yeah.
And so it's important to know that, like, it's coming from, like, a lot of times it's coming from somewhere. And people are going through a lot, and a lot of times people do fall on the drugs because it's one of the only escapes they have from, like, their head and their minds. Like, they don't have other ways of help. So that's the last thing I wanted to add on that, because I forgot to mention it. But, like, I thank you, Kay, for including that comment. And thank you to the original poster for putting that, because I'm glad we had this discussion.
Yeah, for sure.
And I really hope more people take that to heart.
Yeah. And I know we've always, like, as a podcast, we've always, like, called out different behaviors we've seen.
100%.
So that's why it was important to mention. Like, there of course there are things that come up with it where, like, oh, that's not really worth kind of talking about, because there's, like, some things that people say that's just like, oh, well, that's just, like, petty, like, it's not really important. But obviously, like, things like this, I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely important to talk about, and I definitely want, like, us to put across that message. So what do you guys think of the episode? I gotta say, this is, like, probably my favorite episode they've done of the season. It was such strong storyline, not just for Buck, but even, like, Chim's part in it. And I just feel like this is what I've been waiting for this whole season. I've been missing, like, the support, and, like, it was just such, like, a powerful, even, like, acting episode for Kenny, for Buck, for like it was so powerful, and I feel like this is just I can't even put into words just even how I feel. I really love this episode. Like just even days later, I'm just like, oh my God, this episode was just like incredible, like phenomenal acting, just phenomenal. Like I like what they're doing with the storyline, and I'm interested to see what they do going forward and stuff. It was so good.
Yeah, I definitely agree with. I think this is probably the favorite of the season. And they've had good episodes this season, but this just hits in a way that's been needed. And I'm interested to see where they continue Buck's storyline from here. Like, what's the rest of the season look like? Because we've not got that much left.
Yeah.
So I'm just very interested to see what happens from here. But overall, I'm pleased with the episode. Anything I have would be like absolute nitpicks, and I don't even have much of those. I usually have a fair amount of nitpicks, but I don't even have much of those. I would like to say, can we bring more murder mystery storylines when there are not like other important things happening in the same episode?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I do miss like episodes like the treasure hunt, or even episodes like obviously like the like other ones that we've had in like season 4 or whatever. Or like
Season 4 was
I
such a
miss
good
like
ride.
the goofy episodes, and it's been a while since we gotten a real like goofy random episode. If you guys, I think you guys know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Season 4 was such vibe, and I need it back.
I know.
Yeah.
And it's just like I've been seeing so many like people like I'm just like, how do people do this where they're able to take scenes in the season and pull the most random storylines that you wouldn't think match and edit to whatever they're trying to do. Like there'll be some random scene from like season 2 or 4 or 3 or whatever season it is, and I totally forgot about. Then I see the video and I'm like, oh my God, I remember that like it was yesterday. And I just like I don't know how they do it. So like major bravo for that.
Yeah. I really enjoyed this episode, and I haven't really been on social media a lot lately just because I've been really busy with other stuff going on. But what I've seen is I'm just really glad that the season is addressing this, and we've all kind of been wondering when Buck was going to have his grief spiral, and I feel like we're on that track now. And sometimes it takes, something else to trigger it, and obviously that was what happened in New Mexico. Yeah, I think this was a really good episode. It was a huge growth. I mean, Oliver and Kenny did amazing. Even Ryan and Aisha, and the little bantery situations that happened, and then the murder mystery storyline, and I those were in there to kind of supplement the episode, so it wasn't solidly like a very dark episode, but it also shows that life continues to go on around people going through other stuff.
Yeah, that part.
Yeah, so I feel like just because Buck is going through that doesn't mean that other people aren't going through things.
Right.
And so, but then like even Ravi and the whole situation with May, like everything was put aside to help Buck. They kind of dropped everything else, the concerns and oh, well, is she dating this guy? And, it was all kind of put on hold to help him out. And I really liked that as a team bonding kind of storyline. I loved them sitting around the campfire. At first, when Athena was there, I was like, oh, did everybody else leave and she's the only one there? And then, they go out, so like for that second, they're like, okay, they realize he's coming out of it, now they're leaving. I'm like, oh, okay, they're all still there. They're just in the, out in the backyard. So I love it. And I also love that like Buck's house keeps being like the one that everybody keeps going to. So
it's a really nice,
it's a nice house.
It's a really nice backyard. I really do like the vibes of his house. And I will also say that like that's such deep family vibes. Like the 118. This episode really showed how much of a family they are. Like they truly are like that found family. That's really what it was. It's like they and I just feel like we've lost the found family for like a little bit, and this episode made me feel like how back we are, and I'm interested to see where we go from here. I was also kind of like relieved that they did kind of cover this in this episode, because I don't know if emotionally if I could have taken it if they let Buck spiral for a few episodes and then kind of handled it, because oh my God, I was literally going through it emotionally in this episode.
Yeah.
It was just like I
That
don't
first
know
scene.
how dark I could have went.
Yeah, that first scene with Buck. I don't think I could have done multiple scenes like that.
Yeah.
That would have been
And
too
I think
tough.
at that point, forgive the saying I'm going to use, but this is how I feel about it. I feel like that at that point it would have almost been trauma porn.
Mm.
And because that's just carried on something for drama. And I've seen enough. That's why I don't like addiction storylines,
Mm.
is because I've
Yeah.
seen shows do this just for the drama. And I'm like, this is such a serious topic.
Yeah, I've seen it in shows be so drawn out and it's so frustrating. And I
Mhm.
just think that here did it so well and that it was just phenomenal work. I don't really have much more to say than that. I'm sure we'll have more to say like in upcoming episodes where we're talking about the storyline more. I don't know where they're gonna go with it. And of course, after like the next episode we'll talk about, they'll have like a 3 week-ish break before the last two episodes.
Hmm.
It'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see where we go from there. But okay, the promo for next week is interesting. I don't necessarily know how to feel about it. So we have a brief moment and it seems like this chaotic call. Then there's like this disciplinary hearing and someone says, how did this all go wrong? We see people yelling. Chim says it was just a bad day. A rescue goes up in smoke, and we see Eddie, Hen, and Chim at the said hearing, and then them being ambushed and getting into the truck. Seeing someone at the hearing tells Chim that he told a mother that it was safe to return home, only to have the building burned down later that same day. People are punching the windows of the truck and throwing things. And I'm just like sitting here watching this, like, okay, well, that's gonna be an interesting one. I don't necessarily know how to feel about it, and I don't know. The promo just used me more than anything because I'm like, how do we go from this episode to that? And I don't necessarily know where we're going with this. And I don't know, I've seen a lot of people be like, are the 118 gonna get sued or something, like, again? Is like, I'm like, please God, no, please do not let this be another like Congresswoman whatever storyline,
Oh,
that
yeah.
storyline. I'm just I don't know. And I feel like the promo didn't get much, which is why a lot of times I do read synopsises, because the one for this episode says the 118 must account for every decision made during a recent fire call when the team's actions are investigated for possible mistakes. Meanwhile, Buck works behind the scenes to support his team as he wants to learn if he can return to the station. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Because I feel like, I don't know, the promo just made me feel very like disjointed. I'm just like, what is
Mm.
going on here?
Yeah.
Mm.
And I
I'm tired of legal stuff.
Yeah, that's my thing. And so I'm like, can we just, I don't, what is the reason for bringing this up? I have so many questions, and I'm also a little more so scared of how they're gonna leave this one and then have a 3 week break after this. I'm a little scared what they might do, which I guess if it's like just 3 weeks and not like, after the season's over, I guess maybe that's something. I'm definitely interested where we go from here, but we'll of course talk about that next week.
Yeah, I guess we'll see what happens.
We're just getting like thrown right into something else, and
Mm.
I'm more so scared because I've seen people have these takes of like, oh, Chim's like a bad captain. Oh, he's
Mm.
definitely it doesn't seem like he's the captain. And I'm like, they freaking had a full on like captain ceremony for him.
Mhm.
Like, I don't necessarily buy into that. But then people talk about things, and I'm like, this is why I need to not read comments on certain apps, because I'm just like you see all these people have these just like really like so far out there takes, like, oh my God, like somebody's gonna die. Somebody's definitely gonna die. And I'm like, I don't care what kind of budget cuts they're doing. They're definitely not going to kill somebody off a season after killing Bobby off.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Because that would just like people have already stopped watching after Bobby got killed off. That if they had killed somebody else off, just imagine how many more people would
Yeah.
stop watching. They
Oh yeah.
they they sort of know what they're doing. And I'm gonna stop in comments. I'll watch the things and scroll unless it's like
Yeah.
those areas where I'm just like, okay, there might be a few bad takes, but I can take that over people saying the most outlandish things.
I just have to remind myself occasionally that people do literally anything but admit that Bobby's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that.
As harsh as that might sound, that's where I'm at. Like,
and I feel like at this point, I never want to like make fun of the whole Bobby truther, whatever they were calling themselves thing. Like people are like
Bobby
Bobby alive
Alivers
truthers,
or
something like
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I never want to make fun of that, but I'm just like, guys, at this point, they have literally
Hey, I've been
spelled it
deluded a little
out
worse.
100 ways.
Yeah.
They've spelled it out so many ways that like, and also I think the major confirmation where now people are really connecting it is the fact that Peter is going to be in a new show on NBC.
Yep.
So I think it's pretty much become clear that he's gone. And I know people saw, or this was put out in an article maybe a few months ago, that basically they were trying to like cut money or whatever, like budget, whatever. So that's kind of why they went in that direction and they regretted it. But like, it's already been done. You can't go back.
Yeah. And like, of course we miss, listen, of course we miss Bobby. And I've been missing Bobby especially lately. Like, it has been especially noticeable that he's been gone, especially with Buck suffering. But also, like, it's a switch up.
It sucks, and like every time I see a scene, like pop up on my For You page of like edit, either an edit or like a scene from an early season where Bobby is there, I'm always like, oh my god, I miss him. But like
Yes, Fire Dad.
but then I go back to reality and I'm like, it sucks that we don't have Bobby anymore, and I can't imagine this, but like we're also getting all these things on the show that we probably wouldn't have gotten, and as much as I like would love it, in a heartbeat I would want Bobby back, but like it's just like we're getting all these things and we wouldn't have gotten a lot of these scenes if Bobby had still been around. And there's just been so many scenes that I just absolutely love that we've gotten. So it's just and it's also not the first. Like, I've watched several shows that literally in like season 1, even in episode 1, somebody gets killed off. So like,
oh yeah,
and I've watched.
We're still spoiled as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, one thing I did find a little comedic about the anniversary of Bobby's death coming out is like I think within the last few days it came out that it was like a year ago we were all spoiled on Bobby's death, and I was just like. I was just like,
oh my
it
gosh.
was like, and it was like the pictures from that everyone thought it was a fake funeral.
Yeah.
But then there was a asshole that, of course, spoiled us, and I hate that man.
Yes. Yeah.
But like, it did take away a lot. I still bawled my eyes out watching like the death and the funeral. But still.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. I mean, it's hard to believe that it's been a year since we were spoiled. Yeah, it was like the end of March of last year.
Yeah, and like the actual episode didn't air till like April 17th, I believe it was, but that's like coming up either way, and obviously they're not going to be airing during that time anyways.
What a year it has been.
Literally. Right. I still can't believe that it's been that long. Like it's even like Lone Star not like literally airing the finale over a year ago. I can't believe that.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like that was last month, but even so, like I think about this all the time and stuff. But yeah, I'm interested to see what they do in these last 3 episodes. I still can't believe we have 3 episodes left.
I know.
Like,
gosh, what a season it has been.
It literally has. I literally there's scenes I keep seeing scenes from the season and I'm just like, wait, that happened this season?
Yeah, it's not, I don't feel like it's quite as bad as season 8 was with that, because I had so much of that with season 8. But yeah, definitely still have some of that. Because what do you mean that happened?
It's like the phantom of the season, I feel like, because I just forget everything. Because like I'll watch episodes like once and then again, and then like we'll talk about them, and then it's just like I forget all about it.
Yeah.
I remember specific details, but then like as I'm like, because I write fan fiction here and there, so then going back and like the person that I often write with, her and I'll talk, and I'll be like, what episode did that happen in? and then we'll like have to search, like go through and like search through it. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Then this happened in that same episode. It's like then it's like my
Yeah.
memory's jogged, or like one of us will say something and the other one, somebody else is like, oh yeah, that's right, that happened. Remember this? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I know
And,
we
like,
keep saying we need to go back and do a rewatch, but when
Oh
our
my
life
God.
is gonna help.
Literally, it's so hard, especially with the
I do
things
not.
I actually am watching over and over again. I'm just like, how do I rewatch something else? And I want to, but it's just like there's so many things
Right.
that I just want to do, and it's weird how your brain works because I will forget about a scene and then like randomly one day I'll be talking about it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like,
Mhm.
wait, that's so weird.
Yeah, at this point I've just kind of resigned myself to the fact that I just don't have time. I especially have not had time of the last few months because of, class. But I have neither the time nor the inclination, and I'm not going to lie to myself and say that I do. I will eventually, but I don't.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's all I can do to keep up with watching it for our recording.
I'm interested to see what they do going forward.
Mhm.
It'll be an interesting last few episodes.
I wonder if they'll sprinkle. I wonder if they're going to sprinkle hints as to what we're going to get for season 10, or if we're going to go in kind of blind. Because we knew what season 9 would be about. We knew that it would focus a lot on like Bobby's death and grief, because how could you not?
Yeah,
Right.
well, I
But
feel
a
like that
lot
was
of
just like
seasons we
heavily
don't know what's
implied.
coming next.
I feel like they're gonna I feel like they're gonna shows typically set up a few things, and then obviously the way the season opens will probably be like a mystery. Obviously, will know like what we're working with how the season ends, but
Mhm.
going in, I think we're gonna be like totally surprised. Which at this point, I'm like 10 seasons. What more could they do?
Yeah.
I'm a little afraid of what the emergency will be. You can't top space unless we're going into hell. Okay, like
I like that.
Crossroad demons comes to
we'll go full supernatural.
right. I think I shared it with you guys. I remember. I think I shared it with you. I don't remember on which app, but it was a direct comparison of Bobby
I saw it.
and Bobby
and Bobby
from
yes.
911 and Supernatural, and how
That's
so
funny.
close.
A little scared of what they will do for
Yeah.
the originally. I don't necessarily want to get there quite yet because I'm just like, we're in the 10th season. I don't think we need to go all out. You know what I mean?
We just this is once again I asked for just a good old fashioned earthquake.
And I just with like I don't know if it's out there they have to do some form of budget cut, so I don't know if that means
Yeah.
slightly less episodes, or honestly I feel like if they don't do like something like super out there with an emergency in the beginning of the season, I think that like saves a lot, but maybe that's just me. We're going into season 10. I don't like, yes, it's a big season. It's great that we're there. But
Yeah.
I'm also like, we don't have to like go like have like this like we don't have to up ourselves every year.
Right.
Because they haven't necessarily upped themselves every year with the emergency.
No,
true.
I like, and again, how do you top space?
Yeah.
I just, to be honest, like when we were watching the space storylines, don't get me wrong, I did enjoy it. But now looking back, I'm just like, I'm not.
I felt like I was in the Twilight.
Part of me is like,
thinking back, I feel like I was in the Twilight Zone. Like, did that really happen in
I
such
think
a
we all
non-sci-fi
think that.
show?
This show really does make me feel like we're at the circus every episode.
just put on the clown hats and wave our little banners as it goes around, and like, yep, we're all aboard the what the fuck is this train?
Yeah, literally, that's what it makes me think of.
And we're still here, but like, also no one has its committed audience by now.
Yeah,
That's like,
okay.
of course they're always trying to bring in new viewers, but
Yeah.
10 seasons we have.
This is like how I am as a TV watcher, and I guess as a fangirl maybe. So like if I've been watching a show for a long time, for the most part, I will literally stick with that show to it ends. Like this is my mom and I with Grey's Anatomy. Like I was too young to watch it when it obviously aired. But my mom, she's watched it since it literally aired. So she's like, oh, I won't be watching this show until it actually ends. And I'm like the same way because I'm just like, okay, if I've been watching a show a really long time, I'm not going to be quitting it until it actually ends. ends. There are a couple of shows where
I ain't quitting
they
you.
yeah, there's a couple shows where they are in their later seasons, and I did stop watching them, but there's a couple I'm like, oh, I'll get back to them eventually. But then there's a couple, the only reason why I stopped watching them is because they were characters that I really, really, really like, and they're not in the show anymore. And like the show is
Yeah.
probably still good, but I can't bring myself to necessarily watch them, or there's even shows I watch for like so many seasons and I just like randomly stop watching them and I don't necessarily know why, but then it's like, well, I'm like a few seasons behind, I can't get into it now. But then I'll like low key just be a lurker and I'll be watching like the video recaps, like the clips they post like on their pages on like YouTube, because I'm just like, well, I kind of want to keep up with stuff every once in a while to be like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah, there's a difference in commitment though. Like I think the one show that I actively refused to watch further was Criminal Minds. Because we lost Derek Morgan and Hotch. And Derek was my favorite character, full stop. So I was already completely like checked out when he left. But then Hotch left like a season later. And I'm like, no. There was one or two other characters on there that I did love, but at that point they were also tackling like that addiction storyline I mentioned before that I did not like, with the character that was beyond babified by the fandom and to the point where I can barely stand him. And I was just like, you know what? I'm good. I've got the first 11 seasons. I still have 11 seasons, which are really good. I'll dip into
and
the
it's funny because like
occasionally.
the handful of episodes I've seen because they're actors that I love that were in it, and I'm just like, and there's even ones like in upcoming shows, not even just that I'm like, oh, they're gonna be in this, and I'm like, have I seen this show? No, but will I watch it for them? Absolutely.
I mean, Jennifer Love Hewitt's in Criminal Minds.
I know,
And she did a great job.
I know,
Also,
and I've
like,
seen
she's
some of
such a
the
good character.
episodes. I just need to like. There's so many shows that I'm like, oh, I've been wanting to watch these for seasons, or for years, but I have not, and I need to actually do it. But there's not enough time in the day. If I could just like not have priorities and just be like watching shows and reading books, I would be the most content in life.
Me too.
Dude, if we were the
I
people
think
that
we
made our
all
like
would.
living off of like movie watching and book reading, like if we could literally just be that, I think we all would be.
Right.
Thank you guys so much for joining us and listening. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and check us out on YouTube. For more, visit 911LSRoundup.com and follow us on our socials at 911LSRoundup. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. And of course, come join our Discord server. The link is down below and on our website. You guys can follow me, Katie, at For the Love of Tarlos on TikTok, Instagram, and Threads.
You guys can follow me, Grace, at Brendan Rafa 911 on Instagram and Threads.
You can follow me, EJ, at EJ8302 on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.